idea of sustainable development?
Sustainable development is to create global growth in a pattern in which eradication of extreme poverty comes in, gender equality comes in, environment sustainable comes in, climate change risk have been mitigated, and ensuring we have primary health care, primary education for global citizens, and also making sure the futuristic options are creating better world, fair and equal world. That is the very purpose of sustainability. It is not mercurial, up and down, up and down. Create a global growth which is sustainable, and contentious issues between developed world and developing world are measured, managed and controlled so that it becomes one world.
Highlight us on the concerns from global warming.
Global warming has been a major concern. Rising sea levels, increasing temperature, deforestation, endangering species. These are some of the disturbing signs of global warming and climate change. Human activities are the main cause for the increase in temperature. And again, if you look at it, floods, famines, again, many of the illustrious exposure of major monuments like Kilimanjaro, again, melting seas, Arctic is melting, Antarctic is melting. These are the, repercussion on account of the climate change. We need to fix it. World at large is going through increasing temperature by 2%. Now we need to minimize it in the coming days.
How do we address the challenge on climate change?
We need to set in the global warming and climate change as is a measurable, manageable, controllable protocol, and that's precisely United Nations framework has been designed, and it is supposed to deliver the values which are sustainable. And again, setting the global countries to come in, individuals, institutions, countries, continents, they all have to set in measures which are responsive to the climate change mechanism. Compliance of these climate change protocols which have been set in to reduce the temperature, reduce the deforestations, factoring in the global trade, again, the climate change is very vital to encourage bilateral trade or investments taking place as a carbon neutral world, carbon neutral economy, green economies, green buildings are the right missions we need to set.
Can you give us a brief history on UN Climate Change Conference?
It has been a series of conferences. To start with 1992, the United Nations basic framework has been designed, and again 1997 Kyoto Protocol has been set in. Developing world have been outlined as their obligations, and contentious issues between the growing developing world and developed world was very conspicuous in those sessions. Protocols and compliance structures have been set in. Again, to further fix the issue, Copenhagen deal was done. Prior to that, Bali deal was done. Then Durban was 2010, 2011. So, in Durban, clearly it was agreed that they will look at the issues which are responsive. Cancun, Mexico was 2011. Doha, COP18, and last year Poland, Warsaw was Universal Framework Agreement, draft agreement has been agreed, which should be discussed and resolved as a final agreement between the global makeups in Peru, in South America.
What is the progress on recent UN climate change conferences?
Progress has been very limited. We have agreed a certain framework in Kyoto, which has not been fulfilled, and the developed world was insisting developing world comes in. In Copenhagen, developing world refused to accept the changes, and contentious issues have been manifested between these two blocks. Then the global financial crisis is also adding fuel to the fire. So issues which are serious, including climate change, was discussed, food security was discussed, and again ensuring the basic agreements was conceived in Durban, South Africa, and they've agreed to create a fund to mitigate the risk. COP18 was a successful turnout. COP19, that's in Warsaw, at least the framework, universal frameworks, draft framework has been agreed, which should be fulfilled in next year.
What are the key commitments at the global level in relation to sustainable development?
Key commitments are required by entering into collaborations. It's not one part of the world which is accountable. It is not one set of economies which are accountable. Everyone is into it. We live in an interconnected, interdependent world. The framework has to necessitate factoring global trade, investments, finance, banking. Everything is to be measured in terms of creating green economies for sustainability. Carbon emission reduction is a structured process. Carbon neutral development has to take place. How do we map this risk? How do we make sure everything is integral part of the overall sustainability? How do we ensure sustainable food development? How do we ensure poverty reduction? Climate change, again, poverty, eradication of poverty are intertwined. There are many reasons to believe that food supply chain will be minimized. The world is moving from 6.8 billion to 9.1 billion in 2050. It means food supply has to go up by 70%. That has to happen in the coming days.
What, according to you, are the food security challenges?
Security challenges are very many. We have serious challenges in terms of production. Africa is a continent which is really at stake. We have serious challenges in terms of energy security, and again, carbon emission. And as I said, food supply, climate change are intertwined. Now, how do we increase the food supply? How do we rationalize the consumption and minimize the waste? How do we ensure renewables are tapped? How do we ensure the developed world and developing world agree on mutual value advantage? What sort of collaborations are required in terms of investments for financial institutions? How do we ensure the long-term rationalization of the food supply and distribution system is going to take place? These are unanswered questions. We have the nature, gifted nature. Mother Nature needs to be, flourished, and that's what the global community has to embark on.
How do you think can climate change be a threat for global food supply?
There's no question. It is a major threat. Increasing sea levels, increasing temperature, the weather pattern changes, food production changes, agricultural crops are suffering, and supply, investments, returns are not integral. It is very heterogeneous and it is not predictable. So we need to fix this supply chain. Production has to be made. Agro reforms have to come in, and at the same time, changing weather conditions, how do we manage in terms of global food supply chain? How do we create individual configurations, or at a country level, how do we promote? How do we have transfer of supplies when it comes to necessities and global calamities? These are the issues, some of the challenging issues we need to fix it.
What are the measures to promote food security?
Initiatives which are responsive. Global trade has to factor food security. Global trade has to promote the values between haves and have-nots, developed world and developing world. And we also have to necessitates the supply chain comes in with production manufacturing integrations and rationalization of consumption, food waste to be minimized. That's a major issue. And again, with the growth in populations, how we are going to have parallel increase in production. What are the reforms required in terms of policy frameworks, political and economical initiatives which are responsive needs consensus.
Thank you, Dr. Seetharaman, for highlighting us on the sustainable development.
Thank you.